Welcome to this council meeting this evening. Madam Clerk, could you please read the roll?
Mr. Bozen?
Here.
Mr. Amos?
Here.
Mr. Morrissey?
Here.
Mrs. Klein?
Here.
Mr. Foyce?
Here.
Mr. Greider?
Here.
And Mrs. Jewin?
Here, and I would echo, I'm having trouble hearing because of a lot of background noise, please. Here.
All right. Thank you. If you would please join me right now. I would probably tell you guys don't have to get up. Why don't we just sit in our chairs right now? And I ask for you to do a moment of silence. So please join me in a moment of silence. All right, thank you. The pledge, I guess we will have to stand up. The pledge will be led by Chief Joe Fitzgerald.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Jewin.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes of June 22nd, 2020 regular session as approved.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 That's, everybody else approve? Opposed?
Yes.
All right, we have an agenda. First up on our, it's time for oral presentations. It's your opportunity to speak to non-agenda related items. And I think we have some folks that are going to talk about an event. So definitely want you to come up right now, Mr. Minister Salas and company.
Hello, Mayor and Council. First, we would like to ask that we can, if it would be possible, to amend the request that we have for the Juneteenth and July event to add street blockings. We currently have Park Street that's on that request, and we ask that we can add Marbury and also 4th Street on the sides of Lincoln Park for safety issues. We did speak to the Waterloo Police, and we did also speak with the fire department. They are both okay with those amendments before we came over today. So if that was something that the council could approve for us, that would be grateful.
Okay, so that's on the consent agenda. I think that's Jerome Amos's ward. Jerome, did you hear that?
Yes, I did, Mayor. I'll make the request when the time comes on the consent agenda. If we could just pull that one off.
All right. When we get to that point, go ahead and pull that off, and then you could then once we go through the rest of the consent agenda, we can have you try to adopt that, and then we can get comments from fire or police just to verify what's being stated as well. All right.
Well, just to be clear, Mayor, that's adding Franklin and Mulberry Street to the blockage.
4th, I'm sorry, not Franklin.
4th and
Okay,
Mulberry.
got it.
And we have Mulberry
I got
on
it.
there.
Mulberry's already on there, so 4th.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Well, if it's gonna be on the consent agenda, we probably want them to probably stick around for a little while. We'll be here a little while.
Not a problem. We can wait. Thank you.
Yep. And then, is there anyone else that has a non water-related.
Good evening to everyone. I'm here on behalf of the Good Shepherd neighborhood, and I have gone out and gotten petitions from my neighbors in the neighborhood. I'm a 12-year resident there, and we have no sidewalks, and we have lots of children that still go outside, which is really awesome for neighborhoods. However, people speed excessively down the street, and so we are requesting for there to be speed bumps placed on Niles Street, Keystone, and Lakeside. But Niles is the primary street that we are requesting and that the petitions are signed from.
All right, so you have those already signed and prepared. Could you state your name and address for the record?
Tamina McCoo, 3002 Niles Street.
And so Sandy and Muhammad have already done a traffic study, so this is the final portion, getting the signatures from the neighbors there, and you have that information. Chief, could you grab that information for us? You have it already? Okay, so we will get that over to Sandy and Muhammad. So thank you for your advocacy.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. You may leave if you want, unless you want to stay and have fun.
It's a lot going on.
All right, do you have a list of those?
Yeah, there's a,
All right, so we have a couple residents that are slated to speak. We've also asked for Randy Bennett and, yeah. Is one more not related to flooding? Yes, sir, come on up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and respected members of the City Council. My name is Mohsen Ansar. Address is 306 Byron Avenue in Waterloo. I'm here because on behalf of my establishment, Goody Mart Inc., a employee of mine was cited for selling tobacco to a minor as a first offense, and I also received a $300 fine in the mail. I just wanted the record to reflect that I've since fired my employee. I don't condone that type of behavior. A couple of other times, there were minors that were trying to buy from my store with the Waterloo Police Department, and we ID each and every time, whether I'm there or any of my board directors. But this employee, because of his negligence, I'm here today. And I would just ask if, as a first offense, if that fine can be dismissed.
How does that work?
the legal department would have sent some communication regarding the citation. So if
Right.
you would want to get into contact with them regarding the citation, then they'd be able to discuss that with you.
I actually have the citation with me. It just says you could have submitted the $300 within June 22nd or come to the public hearing. And I decided it would be better if I show up to the public hearing and just have it heard. So I don't know what the process is from here.
So for the process for a public hearing, one would actually be scheduled on the agenda.
Okay.
And one is not scheduled for today.
Okay.
So I would encourage you to get in contact with the legal department regarding the fine and where it's at with the process for scheduling a public hearing.
Sure. And where can I find the information for that?
Sure, let me look up their number real quick.
There's no contact info on there for
I
the,
mean, this letter that I received from City Waterloo, it says City Waterloo has scheduled a hearing before the Waterloo City Council on the 29th of June at 5:30. And that's the reason why I'm here today.
Their phone number is 291-4327.
4327, you said?
Yep, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have any information about the hearing, and that information wasn't provided to put it on the agenda today. So I'll make contact with them as well.
Okay,
to get
so
that
should I
cleared
just
up.
disregard this
apologize.
letter and then just wait for a new letter for a public hearing?
I would get in contact with the
Sure.
legal department, and I'll
All
do
right.
the same.
All right, thank you.
Sorry for the
No, it's
confusion.
all right, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to ask Randy Bennett and Jamie Knutson to start us off, and then we have a couple different residents had requested to speak as well. So, Randy, you're Jamie on.
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Not all at once.
Yep, okay. This is Randy Bennett, Public Works Division Manager. First off, kind of wanted to start off on talking about the excessive amount of rain that we've got over this last month, in particular June 9th and the June 19th through the 22nd. I'm going to kind of talk about primarily two different neighborhoods. It'll be the Home Park Reber area, and then we'll talk about the Upland Muncie and how they're kind of going to be kind of tied together. So the first part I guess I'd like to talk about would be the Home Park Reber area. This was a development that was kind of developed in the, most of the homes are in the 20s and 30s. And the sanitary sewer system that's in front of that was originally designed as both a combination storm and sanitary. And over the years, once we end up getting into the consent decree, part of the corrective action was for the city to really crack down on illicit discharges and sump pumps and footing drains and things like that. So when it came to this area, the city has made a lot of improvements over the years as far as installing a new storm sewer that was, which wasn't there. That we started taking a lot of the surface water off of the roads and then starting to eliminate some of those cross connections, which are called illicit discharges. So, since June 10th, we didn't have any backup in that area, but on June 9th, we actually had a few on that date, which that was new to us. So that was kind of something that kind of took us by surprise. But on June 9th, we did have kind of a record rainfall at 2.31 inches on that day. Then we kind of fast forward into the 22nd, which had even more significant amount of rain along the Highway 63 corridor, which had several more locations as far as it had basement backups and overflows in that nature. So as we were looking at that and we were looking at some of the illicit discharges for which we were taking off of the system, which I do want to point out over the years, it's a lot of those, like I said, it's the cross connection between the storm and sanitary that we have taken off. They had kind of eliminated those discharges. As we were kind of looking at this, we did have one area, which was at Home Park and Lawn Hill, which was a cross connection that we do believe it was kind of working in twofold. Some it was for alleviating the storm, but into higher flows, we think it also was working in the opposite effect, working for the sanitary as well. So, so once we actually kind of were looking at that and looking at some of where some of these were at, we went ahead and reached back out to the DNR to get a request to reopen it because, like I said, part of our consent decree and in complying with the DNR and the EPA, we're required to separate those illicit discharges where the storm and sanitary are connected. The DNR did work with us to where we were able to open that back up, which we did last week. So we're hoping that that potentially can help this area. But I do want to state that, engineering has been doing a lot of improvements in this area as far as putting in new storm, which has been what's alleviated the Home Park Reber area. And, but unfortunately, I think with this high rainfall event, which did end up getting qualifying for a proclamation for a governor for some assistance because of that high flow. So I also kind of want to just talk about how does this coincide with the Highway 63 corridor, which is where we've really seen a lot of the higher flows, and it comes down to the Upland and Muncie area. Upland and Muncie, which unfortunately is an area where we are more prone to having some basement backups, and a lot of that has to do with where we have a lot of our footing drains and sump pumps, along with some undersizing as far as pipe and a lot of change in flow as far as how that works. So we've already been working with AECOM as far as doing some modeling along the Upland and Muncie area. So one of the things that we have done in regards to that area is the modeling has already shown that just removing sump pumps and the footing drains and that unfortunately isn't going to correct the entire problem. It's going to take some upsizing in the pipe along with straightening some of the pipe where it changes multiple directions in the process of doing that. So along the Highway 63 corridor, as kind of going back to the Home Park and Reber area, one of the things that we also have to take into consideration, that area there, it does not drain towards Highway 63, even though it's right alongside of it. That was, as the city was growing, it was growing from the inside of the core out. So actually that area, all of that area drains currently through the core of the town to where it eventually gets down to the inner city interceptor. So with looking at what we've done with the storm, kind of re-diverting some of that flow, what engineering has been working on that, we're also looking with AECOM on what we can potentially do to re-divert some of the sanitary to take some of that excess that's on this, which we're working on. And I guess probably before I go too far, I do want to kind of get Jamie in here so where he can give a little bit of an update on the Home Park Reber area, because like I said, a lot of these illicit discharges, was kind of corrected where we were eliminating those storms, and Jamie can kind of give you a list on all those that were kind of in this respective area. So Jamie, you want to kind of jump in there?
Sure. Jamie Knudsen, city engineer. Just a little bit of background for all of this area. In 1992, we reconstructed Kingsley. At that time, we reconstructed the whole sanitary sewer and put in brand new, and we would have removed 4 storm drains that would have taken street water and dumped directly into the sanitary. We disconnected those. In 94, we did the same thing on Fletcher between Campbell and 63. In that case, we had removed 6 storm drains from the sanitary sewer. In 98, we reconstructed Reber and we replaced all the sanitary sewer. Now, there were no cross connections like Randy's been talking about. There were no storm drains tied into that sanitary sewer there. Then in 2009, we did Campbell from Fletcher to Marsh, reconstructed all the sanitary sewer, got rid of all the old leaky pipes. But in this particular case, there were no drains that needed to be disconnected. And then we get into the recent history here. In 17, we did Fletcher Avenue from 4th Street all the way down to Campbell, and we removed, again, brand new sewer, made it watertight, and removed 3 inlets there. On King Bard, we also did the same thing and removed 4 inlets from the sanitary sewer. And then this year, as part of our 3rd Street reconstruction that is currently going on, we have removed 3 of those out of the Lawn Hill intersection so far. We will have another 3 that will come out of the Euclid intersection when we get to that point or get to that section. And then as you go further upstream, up by King Bard, you get into Elston and Columbia Circle and that sanitary sewer that comes down to the Reber area. We've taken out 3 intakes already and have another 4 to go to get them out of the sanitary sewer line. So with all of these projects that engineering has done and removing all of those storm drains, that was water that was getting directly, as soon as it fell on the ground, was going straight into the sanitary sewer. And that accounts or would account for an awful lot of water going into the sanitary that quite frankly, the sanitary sewer was never really designed to handle that. So we have been disconnecting things as we can, replacing the sanitary sewers in there with brand new piping, eliminating leaks and things like that, trying to make it as watertight as we possibly can. So I know it doesn't help to the folks that had backups, but but without the city having done some of this, it may have very well been a lot worse for homeowners in that area. Again, I know that doesn't mean much when you had water in your basement, but it certainly could have been, it could have been worse in this particular case. Again, the sanitary, as Randy intimated, that these sewers, sanitary sewers, were never really designed to carry that much extra water in addition to the sanitary sewer that they would normally carry. And I know folks that I've talked to over the last week or 10 days have said, you know, this has never happened before. And that's very possible that it may have never happened at your home, but this was a very strange event. The groundwater, if it's up and getting into some of these pipes and different things, you just never know where that water is going to sneak into. And then you add in footing tiles connected into sanitary sewer services under people's homes. It can add a lot of extra water. And again, I know that doesn't mean much when you're looking for solutions, but there are reasons behind why this happened anyway. So
Jamie, that's you know, good background and good history. To where are we headed to now? You or Randy, where are we headed to now? What is potentially going to change? I know with regards to our consent decree, we are required that we have to do disconnects, but have you talked to the DNR? Have you talked to the EPA? What's next? That's what folks, history is great, and it shows we've done some things, but what's next?
Okay, so like after this event, like I said, we have been in contact with the DNR as far as where we reopened that disconnect there on Home Park. We also, part of the consent decree, because we are obligated to address that, we were already working with AECOM along the Highway 63 corridor. So it should either be the first or second council meeting in July to where we should have that on there as far as to be able to do the modeling that we're going to need to do to try to correct this problem. You know, unfortunately, as far as like a real quick fix, you know, like I said, they're going to have to do the modeling because it's going to take a little bit just to see whether or not, like I said, when we were talking about the Upland Muncie area where we've already done the modeling, we already know that the sump pump and the footing drains isn't going to be enough to correct it. And now that we're hoping to try to take some of this Home Park area, tie that into 63 to alleviate that system, we just want to make sure that the size of the piping and all that, and that's where AECOM would be coming in to do that. So that's kind of how that would be addressed. Now, when it comes to as far as relief for some of the property owners, like I said, this was a large event. The governor did give a proclamation for Black Hawk County, and we do have on our website where residents can go onto the homepage, and we do have where that disaster proclamation is, to where they can work with Operation Threshold to try to do that. And then residents also have the option to file a claim through the city clerk's office to be able to do that as well. So that's kind of primarily going to be the two options for which they can try to work through there. And then, you know, on the city side, of course, that would be going through the city's insurance provider to where they would investigate it and kind of go from there. But I guess, you know, kind of expand as far as like where we're going to go. You know, I do want to talk about our master plan. You know, when the city did get into the consent decree, you know, there was a lot of issues throughout the community, and the city does have a plan. You know, we have spent a lot of money over the years to kind of get, you know, even though right now, unfortunately, you know, this event didn't happen. So we have spent, you know, just from the consent decree start, a little over $12 million, where we already have completed projects. We currently already underway with $22 million, what's either under contract or under construction, and well over $90 million, you know, through the next 12 years, just trying to comply with the consent decree. Not to mention where, you know, areas like this Rieger area where this kind of come in with this discharge where the storm was kind of working in both folds. You know, those are additional projects that weren't part of that, but, you know, along the way that when we come across them, we also are going to have to address them. So, you know, when you just look at, you know, the amount of projects that, you know, we've already accomplished and what we have currently underway, and then what we continue to have in the future, and that's just on the sanitary side. And, you know, I know the council, Mr. Morrissey was even asking on the stormwater side, which they kind of go together. And Jamie, you can kind of, you know, talk about on that portion right now too, if you'd like.
Yeah, I guess I'd leave that up to council or the mayor if you want me to talk about some of the storm sewer stuff.
So Jamie,
or you want to keep it more to the sanitary side.
So Jamie, let me before we turn it over to the citizens to speak. So one, you highlighted from the 90s all the way up. Both of you did. Number two, you talked about what we will be allocating money for and what we have most recently allocated. Number three, Randy, am I hearing, so folks out here can hear as well, that in July, second or third week, you are doing modeling. If you're not familiar with modeling is, I wasn't either, but you become very versed in consent decree when you inherit one. But modeling is the way in which they can take a look at the system and see what's going to work to make the proper changes to help in the future. So they have to modeling. So I'm hearing you're going to be modeling, and then you will have something on the agenda to either model, or you'll have something on the agenda as a possible solution to deal with this influx of problems we had. Is that, Randy, what am I hearing you say so folks can clearly understand?
Yeah, so like I said, you know, we were already looking at the Upland Muncie area as far as trying to look at the long-term correction there, which I'm going to refer to as Highway 63 because that's the corridor that it's going. So we were already in the works with AECom on doing that. We're just going to expand the scope of that a little bit more to go ahead and include the Home Park, Reber area as well, and get that on the agenda so they can get it going. So the one thing is we want to make sure that when we go to make any corrective changes that we do it and we address all the issues that we need to. So yes, that's what's going to be on the agenda, so that they can study that and make sure that we've captured all of that and hopefully make the permanent repair that is going to address all the issues.
So to reiterate, the middle of July, there will be an item placed on the agenda for some types of corrective actions to be able to help these folks.
Correct. And I believe, I don't know if Doug or Ross is on. I mean, they could, because I think they already had a lot of it done. I don't know if they can speak to that, whether it be the first or the second meeting. Just depends on where they're at.
Sure, Randy and Mayor and Council, this is Doug Schindel with AECom, and we will have an agreement on there to do the preliminary design report for Highway 63, and like Randy indicated, to do some additional modeling, to take a look at the flows and what we can convert from service area 19 going into 18 along the Highway 63 sanitary sewer, and that's what really needs to be upsized. So we will be ready to get that on the council agenda for your next meeting.
So when you hear service area 18 and 19, that may not mean anything to the folks that are sitting in the audience. Are we talking about their area in which they live in right now, from the Home Park to Reber to Upland to Muncie? We're talking about that area, just for clarity for these people.
Yes, you're correct, Mayor.
Okay.
That'd be service area 19, and we're going to take a look at possibly taking that to what we call service area 18 along 63. And then the Upland and Muncie is service area 18. So it's handling both of those service areas.
All right.
Correct. That's correct.
All right. So when I said these people, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I meant so we know we're talking about your neighborhoods instead of other service areas. So we do have a couple people that have asked to speak. Who's first up?
It is Janice Judish, 716 Home Park.
So Ms. Judas, would you please come up, state your name, and does she need to give it to a record since she already did? Could you do that again?
Good evening, Mayor Hart and Waterloo City Council members. My name is Janice Judish, and I live at 716 Home Park Boulevard. I am here tonight to share my concerns as well as the damage to my home, which occurred last Monday, June 21st. I woke up to sewer backing up in my basement. The water kept bubbling out of the drain. I began to try to save certain items, and I was luckily able to save a tub full of photos. I called a cleaning company in Waterloo, which had reached out to another area by Des Moines to have extra staff brought in due to the number of homes needing help in this area. He said approximately 70 homes they were called to in this area to help. And I was told by the supervisor of that company that Waterloo has a serious problem with their sewer, which needs to be fixed. The damages I incurred, as other people in the room have, carpet being torn out, OSB floorboards damaged beyond repair, furniture, and numerous other items, and I'm still waiting to hear about my furnace. I continue to have a large industrial dehumidifier running as several industrial-sized air movers, and those have been plugged in my home since last week. So based on that, I have several concerns that I'd like to share. Number one is the cost of electricity running extra equipment to clean and get rid of the moisture. Will we get a break in electrical costs? Because they're it runs 24/7, they're very loud, and they take a lot of power. What about water usage? We've had to use a lot of extra water to sanitize our home. Repair cost items and replacement items. We lost a lot of items, and what about the charges taking things to the dump? Because that was very expensive. Another major concern I have is healthcare and health concerns, such as the parasites and E. coli from the sewage, and also COVID-19, because we do know that testing a sewage can predict COVID outbreaks. So I'm wondering if anybody from the city has talked to the health department. Another health concern I have is the breathing in of hydrogen sulfide from those wastes in our home, because the smell was unbelievable. And it's very toxic to people and humans, as well as the related diseases from breathing that in. We've kind of talked about that already, but what will the fix be? And how can this be prevented again? Because every time I hear rain, I panic, like, oh my God, I do not want to go through this again. And then just 7, more explanation about the flood disaster proclamation by the governor and the impact to the homeowners. We've had large amounts of rain in the past, and I have never had anything like this in my house before. So the reason of this mess must be someone did something to cause the backup in our homes. In the Waterloo Courier article from yesterday, it was that work to comply with federal wastewater laws may have contributed to sewer backups in our area. There's a paragraph in here I'd like to read. Sewer workers televising lines discovered the sanitary and storm sewer lines were connected at the intersections of Lawn Hill Avenue at West 3rd and at Home Park Boulevard. The DNR was notified, and those cross connections were removed in September. My question is, why wasn't this tested or some type of impact study done before they connected these things? Just removing something doesn't fix a problem. And our homes are living proof that this didn't work. Like I said, I've never had sewer backup in my basement prior to Monday, and as previously stated, we have had heavy rains before. I feel the amount of rain is not responsible to the damage that I incurred to my home. Therefore, my last question is, what is the City Council going to do about this? This area of Waterloo deserves answers and assistance, as well as assurances from the city that this problem is going to be taken care of properly.
Well said.
That's all I have.
Who's next?
Lindy Colburn is next.
And while Mrs. Coburn is coming up, Randy, she did bring up a good point, well, several good points, but with regards to the disconnects, does the city have to comply with the EPA or the DNR with regards to if there's a disconnect or disconnecting? Or Jamie, either one.
Yeah. Oh, yes. When we do find the storm sanitary, we do have to formulate a plan on how we're going to get those separated. And like I said, that's what we've been doing. And as Jamie has stated earlier, we have done several in that area, which alleviated, since 2010, a lot of those basement backups. And, we do feel when these two events that we've had on the 9th and the 22nd, but when we did the one that was actually at this home park in Lawn Hill, that one I think we was actually working twofold to where it was allowing it to flow in both directions. But unfortunately, part of the complying with the consent decree and the DNR requirements, we are obligated to separate those.
So
the
we
DNR, after we did show what happened here, they acted fairly quick to work with us to let us reopen that because we couldn't just go and do it without getting their approval first.
So we're required to do it, and you communicated with the DNR what happened, and what did the DNR tell us to do? You there? Or Jamie? Or Doug?
Sorry about that. That was muted. No, that's like I said. That's where when we looked at these two events and potentially thinking what part of the problem was, this one on this intersection. That's the reason why we brought it back to their attention because we were thinking it was actually working twofold, not just strictly to drain the storm, but it was actually working the opposite effect where it was providing relief for the sanitary.
Right.
So that's why they gave us approval temporarily to open it back up until we come up with our solution to correct it.
All right, Ms. Coburn.
Good afternoon, Mayor Hart and City Council members. My name is Lindy Coburn. I live at 2127 West 3rd Street in Waterloo. As I'm sure you're aware of, we, amongst others, have had severe sewer water backup last week. We unfortunately are not covered by our homeowner's insurance, and the damage and loss of property we have is extensive to say the least. We ended up with 2.5 to 3 feet of sewer water in our finished basement, causing severe damage to our rooms down there, a loss of all of our major appliances, water heater, furnace, washer, and dryer, and are still trying to assess the extent of the personal property lost, which I know is almost everything down there. Our block of West 3rd Street is tore up and currently under construction, and this is our 4th year of being homeowners and have never had any water in our basement in the past. So I can't help to feel that this is the reason why. I spoke with several neighbors who have lived here much longer than us and have all said the same thing. To make matters worse, the timing of this happening for us is even more earth-shattering, as my husband was in an automobile accident and has had multiple surgeries, most recent being June 24th in Iowa City, which was 2 days after this happened, and has multiple broken bones, preventing him from not only working, but being able to attempt any sort of cleanup throughout this whole disaster. To say we're in a state of desperation is an understatement, and we're hoping and praying that somehow our city comes through for us in our time of need. In addition, I'd like to add that I'm aware there is a grant available if you make under a certain amount of money each year, but in our case, not only was our annual income over that amount last year, but $5,000 would barely scratch the surface, as we've had multiple contractors come out to assess the damage, and have been told we sustained $20,000 in damages, if not more. We're also worried about the various diseases and health impacts that could stem from attempting to clean up this ourselves. We do not have the financial resources to even start properly or professionally cleaning up the mess, let alone to replace the appliances that are essential to our normal everyday lives. We went from being proud and happy homeowners to being completely devastated by the devastation that was left behind. I ask that you all please consider doing what is right and issuing the necessary compensation to restore all that we've lost and make our homes whole again. Thank you for all your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Coburn.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, anyone else can please come up and speak. We will be here until all your voices are heard.
Good evening, Mayor Hart, City Council. May I start by saying, Mr. Mayor, your likeness on the Levi Brothers building is larger than life. And we appreciate diversity as our strength, the mural that's been created, and we want to thank you for your work in building bridges amongst our community. And that's what we're here to do tonight, is to come together as a community. So thank you, Janice and Lindy, for your words that are moving, and I think that a lot of us connect with tonight. I remember just a few years ago, not that long ago, the Highway 63 train underpass was an issue. There was continual flooding, freezing over that flooding, and it took years to figure out a solution. And then we had to wait a couple of years before the overpass and the new bridge was completed. And it's glorious. As a pastor in the community and someone who has to go to Allen Hospital from West Waterloo, it went from a 35-minute commute up to the hospital to a 10 to 15-minute commute, which helped out my day and the number of people that I was able to see. So I celebrated that, and I appreciate the history that has been provided by our public works officials tonight. But like others have already stated, I'm very interested in a solution. I'm wondering how long this problem will take to resolve. Will it be years? Will it be a couple of years of construction? As someone who lives facing West 3rd Street just near Lawn Hill, we've seen all the streets be dug up and the dirt and then put back down and then dug up again this week. And so we're wondering if there's an update in the process of where we are and what we have to look forward to. We didn't report, my family and I did not report basement flooding back on June 9th because we thought it was an isolated incident, just something to do with our house. Although we had at least as much rainwater, the 2.1 inches that was counted in the rainfall. Thankfully, it was clear water at that time. I'm wondering, again, where we are on the street project and how we're doing, particularly underneath the street and connecting systems, because it seems like the correction that was made last fall is actually part of the problem. What is the timeline on that? June 22nd, we were less fortunate a week ago. We had 12 inches of sewage in our basement, including fecal matter that had to be removed, toilet paper, smelly water that continued until this day. And we've had a dehumidifier running as well to try to get the smell out of there. And we are in the process of selling our home and moving to a new community, so we want to hand our new home resident something she can have confidence in. Will she have to deal with this problem for years to come? It costs us just about $100 to clean up and to sanitize down there. $5,000 is covered in our insurance policy of all that may have been broken or lost. People next door to me, and I've talked to several in a multi-home radius around us, report similar problems and things that can't be replaced by money, such as pictures from their wedding day. Up to $20,000 in damages was just shared, and perhaps more, by one of our neighbors. But we're looking at this as a $130,000 problem, because if the sale of our home doesn't go through because of this, what do we do? How do we move forward? So I'm not sure that it can, we're just one family. If you look at the many families that are being affected by this, all my neighbors have a similar concern. What's going to be done? Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Pastor Greeley. I need you to state your name and address for the record, Pastor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name's Joe Greenmore. I live at 2109 West 3rd Street.
Thank you. All right. Next person, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Okay. Hello, my name is actually Kim Edelman, and I am representing Heike Pinheiro. She lives at 724 Reber Avenue. I'm representing her because English is not her first language, so she's asked me to speak on her behalf, but also on behalf of all of the elderly residents that live in her neighborhood who are not able to come tonight. Heike, as the others have said, has had the water back up in her basement not once, but twice now. We have waded through feces in the water in order to try to salvage anything that we could of her possessions that were down there. She made an insurance claim. Fortunately, she had backup insurance. Many of her neighbors did not, but she still has to pay that deductible. And The very next day, after she finished cleaning up from the first round, she was hit again with another round, and so she had to make a second insurance claim. So she's now at risk for being dropped by her insurance company, but she can't financially afford to do the cleanup without that. But let's talk about some different responsibilities, those to our planet. We have laws and acts to protect the environment. Pumping raw sewage in out of the drains to then dump it into the river as a Hail Mary in an emergency is not a good long-term plan. Biohazardous waste has now been poured into our waterways and has its own repercussions on our environment and the health and safety of our people. This is why the laws are in place. By continuing to utilize this pumping system and not fixing the actual problem, Waterloo is demonstrating violations of the Clean Water Act and putting our safety at risk. This goes way beyond cleaning sludge from our basements. It's negligent, it's dangerous, and it's not legal. Please make right by your citizens with reimbursement and right by our environment with repairs. Heka had 5 years ago, she had significant freezing in her pipes when we had that really cold winter. And so at that time, her pipes froze. She had to replace all of her sewage lines at that time. So there's been some insinuation that this is an unusual situation due to maybe some of the neighbors have had tree lines or things that are blocking the sewage lines. That is not the case for her because she has run new lines. And so she would have caught any problem like that and mitigated it then. So knowing that she's done that, she's mitigated her problems, we'd like to know what the plan is moving forward to ensure that the city has mitigated the problems on their end. Mr. Bennett spoke earlier that they would be putting some plans in the agenda mid-July. That's great, but in the meantime, what is going to happen to the community if it rains again, if we get more rain? This is not an unusual amount of rain. I know we've had a lot of rain, but actually 2018, September, was a record rainfall month of 13.35 inches of rain, and I think most of the community members here would attest that they didn't have any water damage or sewage backup then. So, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Edelman. And Ms. Edelman, that's what one of the reasons why we're trying to figure out if the disconnects that we were mandated to do via federal constraints, if that was one of the challenges too. So thank you for your comments. The next person, please come on up. Feel comfortable to come up and express your thoughts.
Good afternoon. My name is Dave Stoner. I live at 2122 West 3rd Street, Waterloo. Like everybody else here, we lost everything in our basement. Just replaced our furnace today. But what really gets to me is my son woke up that day surrounded by water, and his Xbox plugged into the wall was floating next to him, along with the washer dryer plugged in. And I mean, had he slept 15, 20 more minutes, he might be dead right now. Luckily, the stairwell was right next to the couch where he fell asleep on, was able to get out of the basement via the stairwell without walking through that water. So, I mean, I know we all lost a lot of stuff, but this can never happen again. He could have lost his life. So, I've lived here almost 20 years, never seen this in my life. Right. So, I'll live there.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Please, next person, please come forward.
My name is Ellen Myers. I live at 1142 Grant Avenue. I do not live in the neighborhood that was affected by this, but I do have a family member who has been affected. My background is 25 years of experience as a municipal wastewater employee. I have worked in various communities around the city dealing with exactly the same problems that the city has. And I've also worked for the Department of Natural Resources. So I've been on both sides of the regulatory stick. It is my opinion, based on what minimal amount of facts that I have been able to accumulate, is that the problem that we had, that these people had in June, both incidents, were a result of the city trying to take a step toward compliance by removing the emergency overflows to Blackhawk Creek. Possibly that was a short-sighted move on the part of the city without taking a look at all of the water that you have, that this Public Works Department talks about, you have remediated upstream. Home Park is at the bottom of the hill. It sounds like you forced a lot of water into a neighborhood that did not have the sewer capacity to manage the water. I know that because I've been on both sides of the regulatory stick, I know that if you contact the DNR or the EPA and you tell them you have a problem and you come forward with some sort of a plan, they will work with you. That's my comment.
Thank you. Yeah, Mrs. Myers, as the next person comes up, this was probably one of the quickest times in history of working with them where they've allowed us to go back and make some changes. So
I have dealt with these same kinds of problems. The last community that I worked in, their sewer system was basically, and one of my goals, in addition to everything else that I was,
right.
so that needs to be the mindset of your employees, so that when they look at what they do to comply with the regulations, and they are required to comply with them, that they think about the fact that
Could overload.
and you've got a room full of people who can't afford to have that.
Right. All right. Ma'am, please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Peggy Pontius, and I live at 829 Home Park. I've been there since 1963, grew up with my family there, and this is not the first or second time that this has happened for flooding. My mom, when she was alive, installed the tile and stuff around the house, and it still has come up through the drains, the gutters. I remember as a kid that our folks made us always stay out of the water because it was sewage water. So this goes back into the 60s that this has happened. Well, their solution was to put the street higher in the middle, and that made it even worse. It's still worse today because everything backs up from the street into our yards, and that's when our sump pumps run overtime. I mean, I was flooded up past my first part of the driveway, and my neighbor called me because I was out with my grandkids and came home to flooding in my house. And I said, not again. And I have never claimed anything. FEMA has come out to my house the last time about 10 years ago. And I got a replacement of a water heater, but I've never asked for anything, gone to anywhere, except to Red Cross when they were giving out supplies to clean. This time I didn't even do that. I just dealt with it by myself. I know I see a few of my neighbors here that have had more damage than I have. And the problem does need to be solved. And it's not making any more higher in the middle. And we did have a former mayor come out to our house too and look at the damage that was done and how much water we took 10 years ago that we had in our basements. So with that, I'll quit.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Sarah Dam, and I live at 826 Home Park Boulevard. I've been there for 12 years, going on 13. I got water in my basement in 2010, but it wasn't sewer water. I got sewer water in my basement on June 9th and then again on June 22nd. The June 22nd occurrence, we actually, as we did on the 9th occurrence, had 4 pumps. 2 that are always in the house that drain out to the backyard, 1 to the front yard, 1 to the backyard. Neither are connected to the sewer. And then we got 2 more pumps. We ran 4 pumps for 12 hours, and we maintained an 8-inch sewer water level line in our basement. This is days after I spent $1,200 to ServPro to come in and clean up the sludge that was left in my basement. Threw away everything that was down there. The appliances have now gone through 2 sewer floods. And now I'm faced with trying to find out how to come up with the finances to pay for this cleanup. My house smells like a combination between sewer and bleach. My sidewalks are covered in sludge. The streets were covered in sludge up until I think Thursday or Friday when the street sweepers came out to clean it up. My dog tracks in what was in the backyard. There's sludge on the sidewalk back there. Looks like cement now, about that deep in the back by the alley. Again, the dog tracks that in every time she comes in the house. We try to wipe her feet off and things, but you know, she gets on the furniture, she gets on the carpet, we walk on the furniture. How do we protect ourselves from the next occurrence that's going to happen? It's going to happen. That's my question. Where do we get the finances from? The grant is fine, but a lot of us don't qualify for the grant. And it only covers a very small portion of what our losses are. So my question is, what are we going to do in the meantime when this happens again? And that's all I have.
Mayor Hart, City Council, I'm Lori Maynard, and this is my husband, Ken Maynard. We live in the 730 block, we live at 730 Home Park Boulevard. And I've lived there for 25 years, so I am a longtime resident. In those 25 years, my husband and I have invested in not only general maintenance and repairs, but we've made considerable updates throughout our home. In 2015, we invested in a drain tiling system inside our basement with a sub pump to take care of the water that was seeping in when it rained coming from the foundation. It was important to us to have a dry basement, not only for the resale of our home someday, but for health concerns. We routinely take care of hiring people to take care of our tree roots that sometimes get in the line. According to the Waterloo Courier, it did state there were no backups in this area since 2010, and I can attest to that. 2010, we did have what I would consider in our minds a minor backup. Now, that brings us 10 years later, June 9th and the 22nd. We did not report anything the 9th, but the 22nd, we definitely did. Let me describe the scene on Monday, June 22nd. I was not at work, and it was approximately 11:20 when I noticed there was sewer backing up that was flooding our basement as it was pouring, and I mean pouring, out of our basement drain. In my frantic attempt, I called my husband, who was able to come home, losing a half day of work. In our attempts to bail sewage water with buckets, it was a complete loss as it continued to rise. At approximately 2 o'clock, we had 6 to 8 inches. We were able to rent the last available pump from Blackhawk Rental in an attempt to maintain what was continually pouring out of our drain. And it didn't subside until well into the evening, long after it had stopped raining. Now, fortunately, we have an unfinished basement. However, we're still dealing with the expense of cleanup, furnace repair, water heater replacement, and personal items lost, in addition to the health concerns of breathing all that toxic fumes in and being in that water. We know, all of us know, that during this pandemic, home has become our safe place. But unfortunately, at this time, we don't have peace of mind, and home is not our safe place. And it won't be until we know there's going to be a permanent solution to fix this situation.
just to piggyback on that, we now fear going anywhere because we could have rain, and I guess our time is up. Our resale value of our home, we're getting to the age where we're going to be retiring soon, so we don't know if we're going to stay or move somewhere else. Is that going to affect our resale value? We're not going to use our basement for storage because we don't want to have to haul it up and down several times a summer. And then we did have a confused question about the Courier reference about shutting off your sump pump during a heavy rain. Well, why have a sump pump if you can't count on it to get the water out of the basement if it comes in? We're just seeking an action of what's going to take place going forward, and we feel like we should be compensated by the city for our losses, which we have filed a claim with the city. Thank you for your time.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Lori DeVries, and my husband John and I live at 902 Home Park Boulevard, where we have lived for 10 years. Prior to that, we lived at 907 Home Park Boulevard, moved across the street. We lived there for 18 years. So in the 28 years we have lived in the Burns Park neighborhood, we have dealt with sewage backup 5 times. 5. That's 5 times too many. In our current home with a completely finished basement, dates of sewage backup were July 2010, June 29, 2020, June 22nd, 2020. Sewage backup is not only a health risk, but it is disgusting, destructive, expensive, and emotionally taxing. I have lost pictures of family who are deceased, important papers, treasured possessions, and have lost much sleep over this at night. I missed 4 days of work and had to use vacation time to haul my feces-soaked possessions out to a large industrial dumpster that was completely filled by the end of my cleaning. My husband and I did as much of the work as possible because the restoration company told us the cost would be $10,000 to clean up, and we would not have insurance money left to rebuild the basement. We cut that cost in half by working 12-hour days. At this point, we have to cover $5,000 of the expenses out of our own pocket. My latest sewage backup related expense is renting a storage unit because we cannot use our destroyed, finished basement for which we pay additional taxes. We can't move out of the neighborhood because no one is going to buy a house that has this history and has inadequate sewer system. Imagine fecal matter and toilet paper left on your front lawn, your sidewalks, and your street, knowing the bacteria and disease risk of walking there. When cleaning out the basement, it gets on our shoes, which is then spread everywhere. Even over at the grocery store when you walk over there with it on your shoes. Even mowing the lawn is subjecting oneself to the bacteria. We can't enjoy being outside or inside our home because the smell of sewage remains. I would like to know if an impact study was done before the city made the switch to the sewer lines, and if so, is there a report available that I could read? I also realize a number of sewage projects coming up, and I request that this issue is the very next one that you tackle. This is an emergent situation, and as everyone else has said, it starts to rain, everybody panics. People are freaking out, and we have good reason. I think it is reasonable to request financial reimbursement for loss of possessions, loss of value to our home, lost wages, and for taxes paid on a home that is not receiving adequate services. If the city of Waterloo cannot provide a sanitary sewage system to our neighborhood, then the city should buy our homes so we can move to a home free of the risk of getting disease from fecal matter flowing into our basements. I just have to believe you'll do the right thing for us. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Mayor, City Council. My name is Amy Faley. I live at 727 Home Park Boulevard. I think me and my wife have lived there 3-ish years now, and we've never really had any problems with water in general, let alone sewage water. Luckily, we didn't get anything on June 9th, but on June On June 22nd, was it June 21st, we got 6 inches of water, of sewer water. Luckily, we work from home, so we did get to see it as it was happening, but we watched helplessly as the sewer water just backed up, rose to finally cover the block that held our furnace, rose to get over our water heater, our washer and dryer. You know, luckily we had a clean basement, but anything on the bottom, anything with a tote that had a crack in it that we didn't know about, got full of sewer water. This resulted in obviously losing irreplaceable items that we'll never get back. We both lost a day and a half to 2 days worth of work to clean it up. We called these cleaning facilities, these service companies. We're told it'd be 1 to 3 days before they could even come and give us an estimate. We were not about to wait with sewer sludge on our basement, so we did it all ourselves. We had friends to help us. But I can't help but think about the health repercussions as a result. You know, breathing this in, walking through it, bailing it out, getting it on ourselves. At this point in time, just like anybody else, we can't put anything in our basement. You're telling us the middle of July before we even know anything? How does that help us live? In the article, it said that you guys did something very quickly for us, right? It happened on Monday, you did something on Thursday. There was still dirty water, dirty sewage in our streets on Thursday. You worked fast? I don't think so. So again, we would like an impact study for sure. Did you do one before this happened? And can we get a copy? When are you going to do an impact study for the health repercussions for all of us dealing with sewage water? How many complaints were received? When I called 3 times, my name and information wasn't taken. So really, just kind of in a situation where, like everybody else, where do we go? Our sanctuaries, our homes are dirty, they're smelly. Our dogs are walking through things, kids have lost toys. We are paying $5,000 to $20,000 a piece just to clean this up. People are losing their insurance. What is the city doing? Will the city do right by us? Listening to Randy Bennett speak was not very favorable. It didn't make me feel good about the outcome. And I think that's all I got. Really, at this point, we need to know what's going to happen and how do we prepare for the emergency overflow, and how did you guys prepare for the emergency overflow upon disconnecting these lines?
Thank you.
My name's Jerry Muhlstein. I lived at 912 for 16 years. In 2008, as Lori and John can attest to, I had 4 to 5 feet of sewer water in my basement. Lost everything down there, as someone said, everything. We were assured by the city of Waterloo at that time that everything would be taken care of. They were working over off of Burns Park, up around Columbia Circle and that. They assured us that that was the problem and that everybody would be taken care of and that the problem would never happen again. And it's now happened again. I sold my house a year ago, but I feel bad for the people that bought it and the people that still live there. Something has to be done immediately for everybody's sake. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Hart, esteemed members of the council. My name is Brooke Lubeck, and I live at 726 Home Park Boulevard. My husband and I are first-time homeowners. We've lived at this home for only over a little a year. I've heard from many of our neighbors that this has never happened before, but it has happened now, and it comes at an awful time. My job is as a massage therapist, and I have recently begun working for myself as a small business owner. In order to reach this goal, I quit my job in December, and due to the nature of my work, I had to wait out a 2-month non-compete contract. After those 2 months in February, as you know, a pandemic broke out. Shortly after, my job was closed and I was unable to work. I have just begun being able to work again this month, and my husband and I are in no place financially to deal with this problem. As it stands, we are even still waiting to have someone come out to clean our basement because we cannot afford it. An integral part of my job is also being able to do laundry, which I cannot do at home any longer as I'm unsure if my appliances have survived and it is an unsanitary place to work with. So not only has this affected us personally, it has affected me professionally. I simply wish to see the city actually actively try to help us instead of pointing fingers at other departments or blaming the weather. We want to live in a safe, clean home for a long time to come. Thank you.
Hi, Mayor and City Council. Excuse me, my name is Chris Lyons. I live with my boyfriend Shane Vineyard at 822 Home Park Boulevard. I moved into that house about 3 years ago. I moved from Cedar Falls to Waterloo, and we had not had any trouble until June 9th when we had backup. We did not report it at that time. We installed a second pump to help take care of water in the future. We've been working on our house, getting ready to put it up for sale. We were about 2 weeks away from having our projects finished, and this has now put us behind. I have concerns. We installed that second pump after June 9th, but on June 22nd, it could not keep up. Thank goodness we had most of our stuff up off the floor just in case. So we did not lose a lot of the possessions that our neighbors did. The $5,000 grant does not help us because we don't meet the income requirements. We have a higher deductible on our home insurance. So the amount of our expenses with cleaning, renting a storage unit, because I refuse to put any of my possessions back in that basement until I know that something is not going to happen again. With all of these expenses, hauling 3 loads of stuff to the landfill on Saturday, taking time off work. I mean, our expenses still do not come up to our deductible, so we're paying for everything out of pocket. My main concern at this point is putting our house up for sale. Our neighbors across the street had theirs up for sale. I don't know what the status is of that offer.
They backed out.
They backed out.
So somebody who had their house sold no longer has their house sold. Our realtor told us we're better off putting it up for a year. And hopefully somebody will forget or not even care what happened here.
So now we can't even put our house up for sale. We're stuck. And as Lori mentioned, every time it rains, we text each other who's gonna leave work and go home and make sure that that pump is working and the basement isn't filling up again. We both took time off work, and again, every time it rains, we're watching the sky, we're watching the forecast, and we're texting each other to see who can leave work to go check and make sure the basement isn't filling up with sewage. We try and open the windows right afterwards to get fresh air in so we could have a little bit of air to breathe. The neighborhood smelled like sewage, like with it in the streets, in the yards. Like as other people have mentioned, we let our dogs out in the yard. They come in, they track it back in.
So I've heard twice the rain being blamed for this. My question is, with all this rain, I'm assuming council members, Mayor Hart, Mr. Bennett, you all live in Waterloo? So you got that same amount of rain as we did? Did you have sewer backup in your houses? No. I mean, show of hands. Anybody speak up if you did? Because if you didn't, I'd like to know, what's your sewer like? Is it the same setup as mine? Why can't I have your sewer setup? Why is this a project? Why is this have to go through reviews? We're not reinventing the wheel. Sewage has been around before 18th century. I mean, hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And we just want to know what's going to be done until this fix can be done. You guys might be making progress, but we need a fix now so that we are not constantly worried about stuff coming back up in our basements.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one last thing. I was the one that sold my house. And the people backed out because they were thinking this is an ongoing thing. And they had watched the news, we had taken pictures of it, and they say they want nothing to do with it. So I'm stuck, like Shane and Chris, with having to stay, which, I mean, is a great neighborhood, but I've retired, and I kind of wanted to go somewhere different, warmer, whatever, but that's kind of ruined right now for, like they say, at least a year, because of the amount of stink, and you still go out on the street and smell it.
All right, ma'am, state your name and address for the record so we
Oh,
have that.
Peggy Pontius, 829 Home Park.
Thank you. I think the gentleman in the blue shirt wants to come up.
Hello, thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Kevin Jass. I live at 812 Kingsley Avenue. I'm a first-time homeowner. I've bought that house in 2009. I believe it was July 7th, 2010. Basically, the same thing happened. Home Park had a river running down the street. It was actually, I saw it. It was a river. Yeah, you remember? Yeah, it was a river. And my sewer backup plug blew out. At that time, I did not know anything about sewer backup insurance. Luckily, FEMA helped me out, Red Cross helped me out, but everything in my basement, appliance-wise, was destroyed, and I did not have a lot down there. Since that time, I've spent thousands of dollars improving my basement. It's not completely finished, but I've added 2 sump pumps, did something different with the floor drain. The sewer backup plug, it will not blow out. The foundation will have to crack before it will blow out, or it will have to shoot up through the toilet upstairs. Anyway, so when we were it was last Sunday night, I believe, when all the rain happened, right? So I was up every hour checking, because my pumps were running. I have 2 pumps down there in my sump pump. And they just discharge water out to the back. And they were running constantly. They'd like take a 5-second break, turn back on. So I was up every hour throughout the night just making sure. And I was like, sometimes I'll get a little rainwater. Sometimes. Not as much as I used to. Because I've made improvements around the house as far as foundation, gutters, regraded the driveway. Anyway, so I was like, wow, the basement's staying pretty dry. This is amazing. 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. I kept checking. Some pumps were rolling, and I'd been up all night checking, and it was still bone dry. I fell asleep, I think, for 2.5 hours. I opened my eyes. I was like, some pumps aren't running. I went downstairs. I had 20 inches of sewer water. I have a studio in my bed. I'm a musician. And since I haven't really had any water issues, I made my it's not finished, but I've made my basement pretty nice. Nice rugs. You know, I lost all my appliances, obviously. All the gear that was down there. I do have sewer backup insurance. Once they saw the pictures, they were back to me within 2 hours saying, we're waiving your deductible. We're giving you the max amount, even though we were sure this is not even going to come close to covering it. I cleaned it all out myself. This is the second time I've done this because I just know I don't have enough money to replace all the stuff down there.
Was this the second time since 2010?
Second time since 2010, and I'll keep this short. I identify with everybody here, and I'm basically saying the same thing. This is going to happen again unless the sewer system is fixed. Right. It will happen again. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak before we go to council?
I just want to add something.
All right.
My name is Lindy Coburn. I live at 2127 West 3rd. I did speak a little bit earlier, but, you know, I don't want to replace anything in as far as, you know, furnace, water heater, if this is going to happen again and we're going to end up having to replace it again. I don't have the financial resources. My husband is down because of the severe accident he was in. My 14-year-old daughter and I were the only ones that were able to go down and start cleaning up the basement and like everybody else said here, that is a huge health risk. We were down there with masks and gloves and could barely stand the smell to be down there. It was making us sick. Can't afford to have the rest of it cleaned up. So I'm kind of wondering the same thing. Like, is there going to be some way that we get compensated for the rest of that too? Not only I don't have hot water. I mean, I've had to boil water just to be able to take baths and do dishes for the last week. This is a huge problem, and I don't even know what to do or go from here. So,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
Sorry. My name's Ricky Shaver. I live at 727 Home Park Boulevard. Just real quick, you guys have talked about the removal of those lines as being part of the consent decree. I want to read from the United States Department of Justice press release talking about that decree. It says the agreement will require the city to assess its sanitary sewer system and develop a master plan to eliminate unlawful sewer overflows, including discharges of sewage into the Cedar River and sewage backups into homes and businesses. So the removal of the lines may be mandated by the decree, but so is preventing sewage backup into the residents' basements. Also, as part of the modeling that you will be doing, if there would be a chance for a resident committee to be involved in that so that we're kind of kept in the loop. And that's it.
All right, thank you.
Forrest Dillevue, 1725 Huntington Road. I went through this for years on Huntington Road, years and years. Some of the same stories that I hear here today. Finally, Waterloo came to our area and put in sump pumps. And I know that had I not had the sump pump installed, that I too would be here telling the same kind of stories. AECom and the city of Waterloo worked on it, and they have us. I haven't seen a neighbor carrying anything out. Our neighborhood has been made better. However, this is not the only place in Waterloo that has the same thing. Over on West 8th and Locke, just this spring, the city of Waterloo went out there and did some sanitary work at the end of that, at that intersection, and thought they had it taken care of. I can tell you, you don't have it taken care of. Whatever they did didn't help, because there are houses on Easton, on Locke, 7th and 8th, all pumping water out of their basements as well. So that area needs, whatever they did, didn't do it. I don't know what it did, but it didn't fix the problem. I just would like to sympathize with all these folks, tell them I've been there and done that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
John Sherman, 1715 Robin Road. I'd like to go back in history a little bit, because the fact that I'm a little older than the average bear anymore. Ridgeway was built over the years, and right down on Highway 63, where we had a huge amount of water in the last couple days there and there. All the development that's been done on Ridgeway, it did not affect the floodplain. I was told that by some various people. I'm not blaming anybody that's current, but over the years. And back in about the 70s, Ridgeway was a 2-lane road, and it used to hold all that water. That's where the Budweiser plant and a lot of the various businesses that are now located down there have developed. They've all hauled fill in. They all did not flood. That's what I heard. But I also heard that Highway 63 and 20 was completely flooded out. That never flooded before. That area is along in there, because we hauled all this fill in from basically the dog track all the way back past Ridgeway across these businesses over the years. They're not picking on anybody. On both sides of the road on Highway 63. Now, I was told a few years ago that the reason we have problems with water downtown when I had a business down here was because all of our big drainage systems that were out in the areas funnel into little areas, these little pipes and stuff, because this area is old. We've never worried about developing that until just recently. And now we've got all these outlying problems. So I'm not an engineer, but I do have just a little common sense. And if we continue to fill in our floodplain, we're going to be just like Cedar Falls. We'll just have to flush North Cedar or whatever like they did because somebody made a mistake and didn't understand elevation. So I think we need to take a serious look at our building plans and see how many new buildings we don't necessarily need to put them there. My ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Shayla Love. I live at 4786 Winghaven Drive. I listened to everyone's testimony this evening to try to shed light on our situation. We woke up Monday morning with about 5.5 inches of water in our basement. Gratefully, it wasn't as bad as what I've heard, all sewage. It did have some clarity to it. Nevertheless, we have a 1,400 square foot basement that's completely finished with our children down there sleeping. So it was a complete loss. I think we're looking at about $25,000 in a loss with cleanup and all the appliances, water heater, furnace, and everything else. And we did not have coverage to cover it. I think our coverage covered $5,000 and that was it. So we've been pulling carpet and drywall and trying to do the best that we can. I've not heard anyone else that lives near me with the same issue. Some of my neighbors have gotten a lot of flood water and they think it's normal. I did call Black Hawk County Waste Management as the water was rising. And there was an employee there who did state the pumps have failed. They can't keep up with the water, which concerns me because I'm thinking the same thing everyone else is thinking. When is the next time? I looked at the forecast for this week. We're supposed to get rain every single day. So I'm a little worried, but I would like to know as well what the resolution is. I'm less than a half a mile from where the intersection of Ridgeway and 63 flooded. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Hello, City Council and Mayor Hart. My name is Jared Cole, and I live at 816 Kingsley Avenue in Waterloo. I think it's great how everybody showed up to support this cause. It's very important. I know various neighbors next to me or in the area who are still cleaning up, who couldn't be here because they're still doing that. I mean, I still have fans running since Monday, and fortunately, I only got about 6 inches of water, so I was able to clean up majority myself. I might have lost a washing machine, but overall, I was one of the fortunate ones. But it's important for everybody to show up and show support for one another and try to get some type of an answer for the problems that we're having. I mean, we can't base our work schedule, our vacation schedule on what's it look like it's going to do, rain-wise. We don't have the finances, days off, physical labor. I mean, I'm lucky to do some of this myself, or in my instance, but not everybody else is. And it's important that something has to be done. I mean, you can't look out the window and say, well, I gotta stay home from work today because my basement might flood, or et cetera. But I guess that's all I got to say. But.
Right. I'm gonna, if you don't mind, can we take a recess? And then after the recess, we'll come back because I know our city council members have a line of questions, and then we'll follow up with some staff comments. But I need to take a restroom break.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion for a 10-minute recess.
Second.
Motion's been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We'll start back at 7:15, but between my arm and the bathroom, I gotta go. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to reconvene. Second.
The motion to reconvene has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are reconvened. And for those of the public that are maybe watching this on television, we've had our neighbors come up and talk about some of the area sewage concerns with regards to Upland, Muncie, was it Home Park? I mean, where does this list continue to go on? So we just listened to our citizens come up and speak, and now we're going to take comment from our city council. And we are still in oral presentations. Council members.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Greider.
So we clearly what our neighbors are telling us is that there was a failure somewhere in the system. Weather happens, rain happens, and clearly something didn't work like it should, because we have had sewage as long as there have been human beings living in urban areas, which has been going on for quite a while now. And I did have water in my house. Very fortunately, unlike many of our neighbors, it was just groundwater. But I think of what it means to go through that on just a larger scale, and my heart breaks for the people who lost memories and memorabilia, who suffered thousands of dollars in damages. And I agree with them that I think something needs to be done, and not in mid-July, but sooner. And so I would ask that we have a special session devoted to this issue and what we can do sooner as a council next week when we don't have a previously scheduled meeting, so that we can look at options, give staff time to give us options, but start making choices and helping these people, because they are asking us for help, and that's really what we're elected to do. And so that is my ask.
All right. Mrs. Klein.
I agree that we need to have more discussions about this, but I don't want discussions to delay anything. We are in the modeling phase for part of this. I want the area that flooded, just as Mr. Bennett and Mr. Knutson said, I want all areas included in that modeling phase right now. But my question is this: that modeling phase has been going on for a while. So when is the shovel going into the ground? And when is the project completion target date? I would like to know that right now, if possible.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Morrissey. Well, okay.
Well,
so let me just do this for everybody here. So one thing you did, and those of you that know me, you elected me so that I wouldn't sit up here and give you fluff. Try to tell it like it is. So I'm not going to play politics. It is not possible to tell you right now at this moment. I think the lady that was in the back that worked somewhere for the DNR, worked on both sides, knows that right now at this moment, I think we learned a valuable lesson about doing things too quickly, and then look what happened with the amount of water and also sewage that you had in your basements by doing a mandated portion of the EPA. I think you want us to actually fix the problem this time, so you don't have to come back in front of the city council, so I don't have to sit here as your mayor and have and just feel completely destroyed for your problem. So let's be realistic, and let's solve your problems the right way, instead of blurting out something tonight and we don't necessarily know what the outcome is going to be. So we will have staff speak after our council do, but nobody can give you an answer right now at this moment, and I don't want to give you the false expectation that that's going to happen, regardless if we agree with our dear council members or not. Mr. Morrissey.
Can I follow up? I wasn't completely finished.
Mrs. Klein.
Okay, well, I know enough to know because this is my ward, and I've been working on this area of Upton and the Parkhaven area. I've been nagging, if you want to use that word, for a long time about that area, and I was told that once we get close to the finish of the modeling part of it, then we would be able to have a projected start and finish rate. I'm not trying to rush them. I'm just saying, if you're in the modeling phase, do you have an idea of when we start, when we finish? That's
Right.
all I'd like to know right now.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Bennett.
Mayor.
Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Mayor.
Can I speak,
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor?
Morrissey? Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Klein asked, when is dirt going to be in the ground? We've already been modeling. When do you expect, one, to have a plan, and when is dirt going to be in the ground? I mean, shovels in the ground.
Well, we now with the addition of the home park area, we want to make sure that that gets incorporated in this so that way we don't undersize what needs to be done, so we can try to alleviate both areas, the Muncie area and the home park area. So that's what AECOM is going to do, and then hopefully that the turnaround shouldn't take too long. And I'd probably let Doug kind of from AECOM give a little bit better example on how long he thinks that might actually take. And then from there, it's going to be sourcing the funds to do that portion. I know we have money that was started to put into the CIP starting next, or into the funds starting next year, but as far as how long the modeling that is going to take, I'd have to defer that to Doug right now.
Well, Doug, folks out here want answers too. You're our consultant, so how much longer is this modeling going to take place so we can work with these folks and get some resolve? And as far as dollars, I know we have some sharp EPA things that we have to do, but it also gives us the flexibility to be able to deal with problems that arise, like we have these residents as well. So council wants some answers. I want some answers too. So Doug, what's going on?
Mr. Mayor, and I have Rod Silverman on the line too, and he might be able to get a little more solid answer. But this is kind of I'll say a newer problem area. That happened, and the overflow connection, we'll get it back to the way it was, and that was kind of the immediate thing that we needed. Now we need a longer-term solution, and that's what the additional modeling is going to do that we haven't done yet. And that's what we're coming to council with at the next council meeting. That will be a preliminary design report for the Highway 63 interceptor project, kind of that Margaret was talking about, or Councilman Klein, sorry, about the upland and area that we want to increase the capacity all the way from Highway 20 to Home Park. So it's not going to be a quick fix. It's a multi-million-dollar project, and we need to get it in the CIP, and I think we've started that. But the short-term solution was to get that overflow connection back in place, I think, and then the longer-term solution is to say, okay, with all the development happening, make sure we size it correctly. We know it's a bottleneck. We need to upgrade and upsize the 63 interceptor sewer all the way from the Highway 20 up to Home Boulevard. And now we're talking about potentially getting as a potential solution some of the Home Park area into that 63 sanitary sewer. So that's additional modeling for these improvements that we haven't done. But that's what this report that we want to come up with to you for approval in the first meeting in July will get the answers that you're seeking.
So it will not be in the middle of July. We'll have some answers and a direction the first meeting in July. Is that what you said?
That's that's when our agreement will come in for you to, for allow us to continue work with the permanent solution and come up with preliminary plans and a good cost estimate on what this improvement for the Highway 63 interceptor would cost. And then we need to get it into the budget and make sure get your approval to finance it.
Yeah, it's gonna have to become even more of a priority. Mr. Morrissey.
Well, Mr. Mayor, in trying to resolve the issues that were brought to us, and what people talked about was extremely upsetting, not just to them, but I think anybody that was listening to what they were saying, and I commiserate with them totally. But the people that talked today are just one of the three groups that have talked in the course of the last month because of different water events that we've had throughout our 62 square mile corporate city limits. And last week I asked, do we have 17 or 19 watersheds within our corporate city limits? And are all those watersheds being addressed? And within each one of those watersheds, how many additions and how many expansions of additions have we had developed over the course of the last 50 to 60 years? I mean, what watershed is the upland Muncie area in? Is that different than the watershed that the people in Home Park and the Reber and 3rd Street area, Kingsley area are in? And when projects are and were proposed in the past for these different addition areas, even going back to the 30s, the 20s, however far back you want to go, once they were completed, was there a plan for the infrastructure that was put in there to begin with to handle what is currently occurring? And moving forward with the new expansion and the new development of additions within the corporate city limits, I would just like to know what planning goes into making sure that the water from whatever watershed they're in is taken care of, not just for that immediate platting of that development, but when that development expands, given the fact that we hope that we're going to have future influx of people coming into our beautiful city. So planning plays an extremely important and crucial part to this. And I mean, when we're talking about the issue right now, we hear what the results are, but what are the individual problems that go into that and what cause those problems? And then what are the sound solutions? And I, as one person on city council, would like to see answers to each one of those questions. I think that's the way you solve a problem. And I don't know that those questions have been answered, Mr. Mayor. I mean, we may have infrastructure in those areas, in all different areas of town other than new areas, that just is insufficient to handle the different watersheds that we were in. So I would hope that we would have, I would request again an answer. How many watersheds does Waterloo, the corporate limits of City of Waterloo, have? What are the completed projects within those watersheds? What are the ones that are planned? And is there consideration made for unplanned kinds of issues that might arise within any one of those watersheds? And I know that I just spilled out a lot of different ideas and questions and asks, but I think they're all important, Mr. Mayor.
So Mr. Morrissey, so you want to know the amount of watersheds in the city, and you want to know, based upon how many watersheds, how many projects have been done in those particular areas?
How many are done? How many are planned in the future? And are there ones within those watersheds that should be addressed but haven't been addressed through any kind of planning or project that was done before? And then also for the people that are in attendance there, what watershed are they in, and what is the actual infrastructure there that needs to be improved upon other than what we talked about? I mean, we talk about stormwater, but we also talk about sewer, and those are unanswered questions, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So,
Mr. Mayor.
So, hey, Mr. Bozen, so just real second. So, Mr. Bennett or Jamie, can you tell these folks which watershed they're in, at least right now, according to Mr. Morrissey's questions? Or
I have to defer that to Jamie. I don't know. I don't know that question.
Sorry about that. This is Jamie Knudsen. I'm city engineer. I forgot to unmute my phone. There are about a dozen named creeks within the city of Waterloo. That does not include I'd have to go through and count, but the number of unnamed drainage ways, ditches, water collection systems within those drainage ways. So, but there are about 12 named drainage ways or named creeks and various sub-watersheds within each one of those.
And Jamie, do you understand the questions that Mr. Morrissey is asking?
I think so. I probably need to have a longer conversation with Mr. Morrissey to figure out exactly what it is he's after, because the stormwater projects that he is asking about will not help what's going on in the Reber, Home Park, or the Upland Muncie areas. The stormwater projects are large drainage projects. They really are not going to help with the sewer backups that these folks are seeing. If there's overland water flow or things like that, or street flooding, that is what the stormwater fee would be used for, to address some of those things. But again, depending upon what Mr. Morrissey is exactly asking for, some of the stormwater stuff is not going to have any real impact on these folks' problems.
So could you talk to Mr. Morrissey in the morning so we can try to figure out exactly how he wants us to communicate that. Mr. Bozen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last Sunday night to Monday, we had, at my house, I had 8.5 inches of rain, and from the Thursday before that, I was over 12.5 inches of rain. So it is a rare event to get that much rain in that short a period of time. But what we did with the storm sewers and sanitary sewers and contributing to this backup, I feel for these people, and I'm glad that the DNR allowed us to open that back up and allow that overflow to take effect. But we have got to come up with a long-term funding solution, and no one wants their taxes raised. We've got to come up with a way to fund these improvements. And I've been communicating with the city engineer, and I know on the stormwater project, I mean, we've got $26 million worth of completed projects, but we got $54 million worth of future improvements. And then to fix these other things that come up along the way. So I know we have unspent money in CIP for the last 5 years. And I think what we need to do as a city is prioritize these projects, prioritize projects with our city engineer, prioritize the projects that are affecting these citizens and affecting their lives, and look at ways to fast track this. And I know it's nothing we can do overnight. I mean, the AECOM coming back the first week and our first Monday is, in my opinion, is probably more of approving the funding for the study as opposed to approving and looking at the study. But I have no problem looking at outside funding sources, such as if we can prioritize some of the unspent CIP, or if we come back to our city, not this November, but next November, and earmark a portion of our local option sales tax to go towards these projects so that we have the funding available. Maybe we fix a few less streets a year, but maybe we fix quite a few bit more sewer problems or watershed problems. And that's my suggestion right now, trying to think outside the box to come up with additional funding sources. We talked earlier today about the enlarging the sewer on Kingsley, from down to Fletcher, but from Fletcher to Orange Grove, we didn't do anything. And that's where they're having a lot of backups, because they have an undersized sewer and all of these things that are happening. So we have to look at the big picture, but we also have to have the ability to fund it, because everyone wants their problems fixed, but no one wants their taxes to go up. So we have to look at ways that we can do it. And if it takes taking a portion of our local option sales tax, instead of using it for property tax relief, we use it to help alleviate these problems and fix this, so be it. But the citizens of Waterloo are going to have to stand behind that and make that decision. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Amos?
Yes. Really wasn't going to say anything. I'm Ward 4, and as far as I know, we haven't had a lot of sewer backups. But one of the things that I am hearing here is that our citizens that this is impacting, they are looking to have something done right now. And I guess my question is that even feasible from a standpoint of having a quick fix for this?
So right now, Randy, I think you got about 3 or 4 things that you want to do now, and then also addressing the lady's concern as well about being concerned if it rains and what we're going to do. Randy, do you have a couple things that we can immediately do or you're working on?
Yes, and that's, I guess, kind of listen to what some of the public was saying, and then, same thing with the council. As far as like what we can do right now, like I said, we've already approached the DNR as far as reverting that crossover. We've already opened that back up, so we put it back like it was prior to us plugging it. The other thing that we're going to do is when we have forecasts of larger rain events, we are going to make sure that we have staff available looking at these areas for which we did have the manhole surcharges, along with staging the pumps in these respective areas. We've already got that in our plan now to go ahead and be proactive to get out there to hopefully prevent this from happening in the future. And then, the other comment that one of the residents talked about is trying to keep the neighborhood association informed. And we're all in about trying to keep everybody up to speed. We're on the wastewater side. We don't want to see this happen to anybody. I mean, one is too many, and we realize that, and we're trying to do our best to get these corrected. But as we move forward, we would love to have 2 or 3 individuals, kind of part of that neighborhood association and have them involved, and then that way they can help communicate back to the other members in their neighborhood as far as how we're proceeding moving forward. But we already have it in our plan to at least ways have that ready, so they're not up all night, looking at the pumps, that we're at least ways going to try to do our best to minimize this from happening again until we can get the long-term solution plan figured out and then get it built and get it corrected.
So
Thank you.
Just so we can be absolutely clear. So number one, you've communicated with the DNR, and whatever that connect or disconnect, you've already taken care of that, correct?
Yes,
All right.
it's open back now.
So that's open back up. That's number one. Number two, you will have staff out on rain events, monitoring manholes, looking for surcharges in our problem areas.
Yep, in this new area in the Reber and Home Park area, yes, we will.
Number three, with regards to if you do find any circumstance or situation, whether it's the areas already or if it is this new area, you will try to have some type of pumps available if that will help the situation.
Right.
Is that, if it's not, let me know. So these folks, they want to know. So if it is, there'll be pumps available. Number four, you interested in communicating at least with a couple of the residents that are sitting here. I think someone had mentioned earlier some type of committee or conversation, a few folks that could kind of take a look at what's being presented and then maybe talk to the other area residents. Is that something you folks would be interested in? Okay, so I see a few nodding heads. It's a quorum of the residents out here that would be interested in that. And then five, Doug, you mentioned that something will be coming forth to the city council. I think Councilman Bozen is a little, it is pushing it, but you will have something coming to council the first week of July, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Or the first council meeting in July, right, Mayor? That's
July
week from
13th.
Monday? Yeah.
Okay. But prior to that, someone, Randy, Doug, you will reach out to the councilwoman.
As a whatever.
I gave her like super ward woman with the cape. So you, can you,
Pen around and
yeah.
get their email.
So can you, yeah, I have one right here. And then we'll work with you and then one of our at-large councilmen, maybe Dave.
Yeah.
And then we'll communicate in that effect. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, council, anything else?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yeah, two final questions. Are we sure of what caused the problems in these areas? And are we sure of what the fix will be? And then the second question is, Mr. Sherburne pretty well brought up it, and the question is, are we overdeveloping certain areas of town in ways that are causing problems and even future problems for those areas? Those are two questions that I would like somebody to take a look at.
Right. I think, and Randy or Jamie or even Noel, I think one of the reasons why the DNR was contacted was because when you take a look at major changes in those areas to the system, this was one of them. So, and that's why I kind of warned against making an immediate decision without doing the proper modeling in those areas, so we don't do anything else to further upset the system. But Jamie, Noel, Randy, do we know for sure and what we'll fix, or are we still, is that why we're looking into the situation and adding this new area?
Well, I guess to kind of address this first question, when we look at a lot of the residents for which we had to call in, because we document all that, that we have to report to the DNR. That's what we were kind of looking at, and there was the one illicit cross connection, but it was close to that proximity, and that's the reason why we wanted to open that one back up. Like I said, I think it's working twofold in this specific location. We think it's not only stormwater that's able to go into the system, but I think in this scenario is also allowing it to drain back in. So, but until we can get AECOM on board to truly model it and make sure with more accuracy, that is our best assumption at this time. And then I would let the other question go to Jamie and Noel.
All right, and the question is, and that's why we're leery about telling folks that every permanent solution is going to be right now, because we want a long-term fix. So the next council and mayor is not sitting here looking at you saying that that we didn't do it the right way. So that's why we're trying to find a long-term fix as well. Noel or Jamie, the conversation about overdeveloping that Mr. Morrissey just mentioned.
This is Jamie Knudsen, city engineer. From an engineering perspective, the city adopted an ordinance 10 years ago requiring new developments to detain more of their stormwater runoff on site prior to letting it out to the city's either storm sewer system, to the ditch, to a creek, whatever the case may be. The idea is that they hold that water on site, they let it out slowly. So instead of a short, large discharge, you're ending up with a smaller, longer discharge. Kind of think about it as a way of bending the curve with the COVID virus. We've all seen that. That's kind of the same idea. So from an engineering perspective, no, what we're doing is the right thing. I will say this with one caveat. There will always be storms and there will always be vents, as all of us have seen, whether it's this last week or 2008, that will always be bigger than what we design things for. So we are doing the right things in regard to stormwater and development. However, there is always going to be a storm that's larger than what we designed for and that will overwhelm the structures and the ponds that get built. So there's always a chance that something will come along to cause problems, even though we build it the best we can.
So Jamie, so Jamie, one of the things that I may say that with storms this hard, it also shows where there's a chink in the armor as well. So this also showed us where we are having a tremendous amount of problems at. So even the next time we have a rain event, the hope and prayer is that these folks don't have the same amount of problems that they just had. So it also exposed where additional things need to be. I want to ask also, everyone that signed that paper or had that pen or passed that paper, on your way out, please pass the antibacterial station. Do not put your hands on your mouth. I know you all know that, but do not do that. So there's an antibacterial station.
Perhaps it might be better to just email Mrs. Klein. Then we're not all sharing the same pen and paper in the council
at this
chambers.
point, it's probably already done. I think these folks, just make sure you wash your hands. So, all right, thank you. Is there anything else, council, for oral presentations you may want to discuss? Or can we go to the council meeting?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to file the oral comments and close the oral comments section.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Let me send greetings to the folks here. Thank you for coming here.
Thanks for coming.
COVID at the beginning of the year, challenges, civil challenges, and then this. I love being mayor, but this is not a fun time for me. My heart goes out to everyone for all the challenges you're facing, and it didn't happen to me, but I'm here feeling horrible from the bottom of my heart. So we will continue to work on it. We are supposed to be our brothers and sisters keepers, whether you're in Ward 2, Ward 1, Ward 5. That's what we're supposed to do. We're going to do our best to deal with all urgency to try to alleviate your problems, because I absolutely don't want to have people come up and talk about problems. We're trying to encourage people to be here and create a greater place, whether it's all the things that I mentioned over the course of this last year. So thank you so much for coming out. And we will get a couple names on there, and the consultants and the city staff will communicate with a few of you in hopes that you can communicate with the rest. And we're going to deal with this with all urgency. So thank you. Please make sure you socially distance once you exit as well. So thank you. Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Hold on, Mr. Morrissey. Hold on. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mhm. Right. Right. Randy. Hey, Randy, with regards to any type of grant or picking up items, has the city done anything?
As far as assistance, we do have on the city's webpage. It should be right on the homepage there to where.
What's your telephone number, sir?
319-504-2648.
2648. Randy, could you have someone contact Mr. Hills? Mr. Hills at 319-504-2648 with regards to grants or funding sources that we have on the website. Not everyone may be able to get on the city website, so if you could have someone in your staff give him a call, that would be greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Definitely do that.
All right. All right. Mr. Bennett will call you tomorrow. Thank you. Mr. Morrissey.
Well, Mr. Mayor, with that, I'd like to receive or make a motion to receive and file additional oral comments and close oral comments. Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Oral presentations closed. Thank you all. Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda. That's 1A1 through 1B6, and it includes clarification of the bills payment of being first, the normal part is $6,684,750.79, with the second being from July 1st being $1,599,989.
All right, Mr. Morrissey, on that consent agenda, okay, I'll wait for Mr. Amos to take that one off, but we have a motion. Can we get a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Amos.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item number 3 from the consent agenda and address it individually. to make that change in it.
All right, thank you. So we have that. Council, anything else? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
And Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Amos?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution approving variance to noise ordinance request from Passion Anthony on behalf of Juneteenth in July for the annual celebration to be held in Lincoln Park on July 3rd, 2020, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., including use of a PA system and street closure of Park Avenue and East 4th Street between Franklin and Mulberry.
Second.
All right, that motion has been made with the second. Is that the locations? Thank you all. Is that the locations you were talking about? Yeah. All right, so that motion,
And Mulberry,
he said it's on.
not between.
Just to ask a clarifying question, on 4th Street, are you also wanting that to be closed between Franklin and Mulberry? So just around Lincoln Park? Yes. Okay, thank you.
All right, so that's been made. Somebody make a second? Someone second? All right, so
Did we have
Mr.
We needed a motion on the amendment, though. We got a motion and a second on the original motion, but to amend it, we need a motion.
Oh, I thought he had it fourth.
No.
He had it fourth in his.
So you need a motion to amend it?
Correct.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend item number 3 in the consent agenda to include East 4th Street closure also.
All right.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Treelor and Mr. Fitzgerald, neither one of you have comments. Did you have your staff look over this and you are okay with this?
The police department approves
Yeah,
of
Pat,
it.
All right. Mr. Treelor.
yeah, Pat Treeler, Fire Chief. Yeah, we're fine with that, Mayor. One additional piece of information, we do have flood cleanup kits located at our main fire station, which is 425 East 3rd. The Salvation Army has dropped off a number of those. So if people are in need of those, they can just come to our station, ring the doorbell, and we'll gladly provide them.
And you know where station number 1, is that right? Okay. I don't know if anyone heard that there are flood cleanup kits at the fire station about a block and a half away. So if you know anyone else that may need one, please direct them over to the fire station. What's the hours, Chief? Take your phone off mute.
Well, they can show up just basically about any time. Just ring the doorbell and we'll provide one of the kits.
So he said he'll be there at 3 a.m. tonight.
Well, that's all good. I'll be sleeping.
All right, but yeah, anytime during business hours, definitely. So thank you. All right, so we have both chiefs have signed off on the plan, and that is the amendment. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
And Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'm going to read through these appointments.
Oh, we need to now adopt the resolution. We just approved the
Okay,
amendment.
so all right, we approve the amendment. Mr. Amos, can we get a motion to approve?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make
It just goes back.
I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution approving variance to noise ordinance request from Passion Anthony on behalf of Juneteenth in July for the annual celebration to be held in Lincoln Park on July 3rd, 2020, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., including use of a PA system and street closure of Park Avenue and East 4th Street between Franklin and Mulberry.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. And I also spoke with one of the organizers today about socially distancing and trying to do all those things to keep people separated, no commingling spots as well. So we did have a discussion today. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin? Mrs. Jewin? She's still on the line.
I'm sorry, yes.
There we go. Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
And Mr. Amos?
Yes.
All right, thank you. On here was several appointments: Pat Becker, Lon Kmeyer, Jenny Dow, Stephanie Hardo, Dusky Steele, Larry Jormont, Kerry Darris, Sherman Wise, Tom Powers, Todd Holcomb, Joy Briscoe, all reappointments and new appointments. So we want to thank you so much for signing up to serve. We also have a recommendation of appointment of Todd Wright for the civil service list to garage mechanic, as well as Christopher Bovey, and those are both pending completion of physical and drug testing. All right, no, it's not here. All right, so thank you. Someone take number 2, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication notice of public hearing on taxable sewer revenue capital loan notes, the issuance of not to exceed $27 million taxable sewer revenue capital loan notes, Series 2020, State of Iowa revolving fund loan.
Second.
A motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, are there any comments on file?
There's no comments on file.
No comments on file. Is anyone on Zoom land? All right. Mr. Morrissey?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and just close the hearing.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed $27 million of taxable sewer revenue capital loan notes, Series 2020.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Counsel? Madam Clerk?
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
And Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Number 3, please.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Foyce?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing, and that is for fiscal year 2020 Leversea Road Sanitary Sewer and Water Main Improvements Project Contract number 987. Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, are there any comments on file?
There are no comments on file.
Is there anyone on the Zoom land that would like to make comments, or on the phone line? Mr. Ford?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing. Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution confirming approval of plans, specifications, form of contract, etc., and authorizing to proceed. Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Counsel? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
And Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, and instruct city clerk to read bids and refer to city engineer for review. Second.
Motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Madam Clerk.
Our estimate was $1,573,575. Our first bidder was Dave Schmidt Construction Company Incorporated of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount for Division 1 was $1,304,311. Division 2, $1,077,672.80, for a total of $2,381,983.80. Our second bidder was Boomerang Corporation of Anamosa, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount for Division 1 was $1,414,745. For Division 2, $823,075, for a total of $2,237,820. Our third bidder was Perk Tobin Construction Incorporated of Alburnett, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount for Division 1 was $1,263,005. Division 2, $663,429.50, for a total of $1,926,434.50. Our final bidder was SM Hentges and Sons Incorporated of Jordan, Minnesota. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount for Division 1 was $1,581,954. For Division 2, $936,111, for a total of $2,549,565.
All right. Thank you. Could someone take number 4?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr.
Amos.
Amos.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing, and that is fiscal year 2021 levy rip-rap spraying project, contract number 1027.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, are there any comments on file?
There are no comments on file.
Is there anyone on out in cyberspace that would like to make a comment about this item? Mr. Amos?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution confirming approval of plans, specifications, form of contract, etc., and authorizing to proceed.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Council? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
And Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, and instruct the city clerk to read bids and refer to city engineer for review.
Second.
Motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, Madam Clerk.
Our estimate was $55,905. We had one bidder for this project. It was Landmark Turf Services, LLC of Dunkerton, Iowa. Their bid amount was $45,874.
Thank you. 5, 6, and 7, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
number 5 is a resolution approving a supplemental agreement, number 1, to the professional service agreement with Wayne Clausen Engineering and Surveying, Inc. of Waterloo, Iowa, in the amount not to exceed $292,000 for the fiscal year 2021 Northwest Interceptor Sewer Extension Contract number 1031, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said documents. Number 6 is a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Davenport Group of Lewisburg, Tennessee, in the amount of $115,000 in conjunction with the purchase of equipment and services to refresh the Dallas data center, storage and related computer equipment and software, and authorizing the mayor to execute said document. Number 7 is a resolution approving general automobile, public officials, errors, and omissions law enforcement and employment practices, and umbrella liability coverage with Travelers Insurance, excess umbrella liability coverage with Allied Public Risk, property insurance coverage with Chubb, and workers' compensation and third-party administration services with Safety National for a total premium of $1,622,990, with recommendation of approval from the Insurance Committee.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Is there anyone that had questions about these? Or Kelly, how does this compare? At least with number 7.
Pardon?
How does this compare? What were the insurance conversation? Because it was better than the previous year.
Yeah, we actually had a surprisingly good insurance renewal, despite the fact that the insurance market is definitely hardening between increases in property damage throughout the United States, increases in auto liability claims throughout the United States, and just coming off of some tough claim years, Travelers really stepped up to the plate and did a good job and got us a 9% reduction when we were actually expecting about a 6% increase. So we'll have some cost savings this year, which will be great because we've gone over budget for insurance for the last couple of years. So looking forward to having a good budget year.
All right, council questions? Madam Clerk?
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
And Mr. Greider?
Yes.
All right, thank you. 8 and 9, please.
Mayor,
Mr. Bozen.
I'd like to adopt a resolution adopting the rate of $1 per hour for the first hour free and a cap of $12 a day for parking in the ramp located on Commercial Street on the block between 4th and 5th Streets effective July 1st, 2020. And number 9 is adopting a resolution approving a 2.5% salary increase for non-bargaining employees effective July 1st, 2020.
Second.
Motion has been made with the second. Council, conversation? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce? Mr. Foyce?
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. Mr. Greider?
Yes.
And Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
All right, 10 and 11, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the following resolutions. First, approving an amendment to the Animal Control Services Agreement with Cedar Bend Humane Society, originally executed June 19, 2017, in conjunction with the fiscal year 2021 through fiscal year 2023 Animal Control Services fees, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute said document. And next is a resolution approving an early access agreement with Personified Incorporated to allow for improvements to the Bluff Street section abutting 326 West 17th Street, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute said document.
Second.
The motion has been made with some seconds. Anyone comments about these two items? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
And Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Jewin, enjoy the rest of your vacation. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you.
We got a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.